Welcome to episode 3 of Beneath the Surface with A&G Concrete Pools. It is my pleasure to be sitting here with Reid Whitaker, project manager. How you doing?
Good. I'm doing great.
Nice to see you. So, you're our first project manager on the show. You're about to give us a new perspective on the construction side of things, but I'm curious, what's been your history with A&G?
So I've been here just about a year and a half so far as a project manager. Got to ride along with, when I first started with some of the other project managers that are here still to kind of get my feet wet. Learned a lot quickly. We have a lot of guys with a lot of experience and so some of the aspects of the pool build that, are not normal, they were able to kind of, get me along the way. But I'm a pretty quick learner, but I have a lot of background in construction and stuff like that. So, but I've enjoyed it so far. It's fulfilling building these pools for all these customers and seeing how, it's nice to be able to give them a product that they can enjoy for a long period of time after.
I know we've got a lot of cool projects to talk about today, so why don't we get into it?
All right, sounds good.
So on a project like this, one of the first things that stands out to me is just the different deck materials and how they're incorporating turf alongside the coping. What preparations are you making on the front end to make sure those elements sort of get to blend together as seamlessly as they do here?
Yeah, so the main thing you're trying to accomplish is elevations so that turf matches that coping, seamlessly to where you don't have a lip, something someone can trip on, things like that. So obviously getting the base elevations correct, the pool elevation correct, so we still have some pitch, so it's able to drain properly. Those are your biggest things, clean lines with a pool like this. I guess one of the things different about it is most of these pool decks are all hardscapes or concrete, where when you have a full turf deck around the pool, it's definitely brings a different, feel.
And alongside that, you get a fantastic aesthetic here. I think when people think of that modern geometric pool, they are usually thinking beyond just one blank hardscape. And you mentioned as well, something I think people don't consider maybe to the same extent, is that need for drainage. Initially, particularly I know when I started, you'd think every deck you would want to be as perfectly flat as possible, but in reality, that's not the best course of action.
Oh yeah, I mean, on every pool, no matter what your surface is, you want to think about some sort of drainage. You don't want the deck to hold water. We add deco drains to every project to take the water from the deck out to the yard to prevent anything from, during hard rains especially, preventing from holding water on, or getting near houses. So that's the first thing when we start to build the pool, that's the very first thing we take into consideration is, what elevation are we going to set this pool at so that we can drain it properly, not get it too high to where you would ever have a water issue going into the house, not get it too low to where it, sits lower than the outside yard to where it would hold water during a big storm.
And I'm sure that's a concern of a lot of clients and prospective pool owners out there, knowing the weather we have in Florida and during that hurricane season, the rains we can have. A lot of people probably have that concern of what happens if my pool gets too high? What if the water level comes out and it spills over? And we make sure those preparations are made long before that ever can be an issue to make sure your home is safe.
Right. Yeah, definitely. I mean, a lot of them have those questions right off the bat. And, we also put in an overflow system on the pools to help prevent the pool from ever, overflowing during a storm. Not to say that during a big hurricane, sometimes pools do get very full, but it would take a lot of that water, disperse it back out into the yard. But yeah, I mean, that's the goal when we're building these is to prevent as much as possible during these big storms, having any water backing up or, damaging anything near the house.
Of course. Now, I think you mentioned something very interesting there, which is your role speaking with the customer during the build process. Obviously, we know when we first interviewed Travis, he has that big overarching approach where he gets to kind of have his hands in everything. And when we spoke with Jason, he's up front with the design of that pool and making sure that the waterscape is exactly as that client envisions. But tell me about what the process is like when you're doing that build and they're really seeing that dream realized in front of them.
So yeah, I mean, I think, as a project manager, once once we break ground on the pool, or maybe right before we break ground, I'm going to start open communication with the homeowners. And you have different homeowners. You have some who want to be, have 1 million questions and ask you, 100 every day. And how does this work? And why are you doing this? You have other homeowners who just are like, have a question here or there, just want you to communicate when, as the steps go along. But yeah, I mean, we're going to start by kind of explaining. I always try to explain what they can expect during the build. Your yard's we're going to dig today, then we're going to move on to the next process of forming the pool. And then we're going to, shoot the gunite of the pool. So I try to walk them through kind of the general steps before we even start. And then as we go along, it's just updating them, saying, okay, here's the next step. We're going to move on to tile. And once the tile's complete, then we're going to move on to coping. And once coping's complete, we're going to move on to, pouring your deck or creating a footer for the deck. The fun part is I guess, I really enjoy working with a lot of the residential clients, more sometimes than the builder, because you just get more out of it. You get to see them like watch the build, and when the final product is there, like, where they're like, wow, this is exactly what we wanted. And, I don't know, you get a little more joy out of seeing them, where, a lot of those, new construction pools, I know the client, once they moved in the house, is going to love it, but, we don't always communicate with them because it's during the build. So.
Yeah. And being able to build up that personal connection is something you do so well, something all of our project managers do so well. And I think that's an important rule alongside what you mentioned, where keeping that customer in the loop, keeping them understanding. For a lot of people, the pool construction process is a brand new thing.
Right.
So they know you're going to have to dig out the yard, but what are all those subsequent steps, and helping them sort of understand as that pool is being fabricated and brought to light where they are in the process, what's going on, maybe why they've waited a few days for something if they have a concern there, or maybe why things are moving faster than they might have anticipated. You're able to sort of address those questions, but at the same time, keep that process consistent and seamless for them throughout. So on a pool like this, obviously one of the most striking things is the sheer size of it, but also I think rather immediately, the amount of features on this pool, from the waterfall, the bubblers, the spa, the poolside fire pit, the in-pool bar. Tell me about how managing all those different elements during the construction phase goes.
Yeah, I mean, so this was a fun build. Obviously it's a big pool. Like you said, it has a lot of features. These clients, large family. They're looking to, host big parties around the pool. They have young kids, so we tried to integrate, all those features for them. Once again, I think the sales guy did a good job in communicating with the customer and trying to get all their goals. We could start with just outside the pool first. We have this big, long fire pit that is going to be a focal point to actually, after the pool's done, they're starting construction on sort of a pergola tiki-ish area, which that will be the center point too, that they'll be able to gather, in the colder times after they get out of the pool or the hot tub and go over and sit there. This deck was big as well, so there's plenty of room to host a lot of people. Just off this fire pit actually was the in-pool bar stools and bar, which that was fun because the way that was designed, there's a little bit of challenge of trying to integrate it into the side of the pool to really match how seamless the deck was. The Windwood Gray, seamless coping. We kind of matched up where that tile line, that water line tile just went right into that bar. So it looks like, it's just perfectly built in. The water sits where the bar almost looks like it's hovering.
Yeah.
We did also on this one, the client's wife had requested, she was like, I'm not the tallest person, so I want to make sure the bar stools were tall enough.
Make them height friendly.
Correct. So we did raise the bar stools for them, which will also be great for the kids too, because they'll be able to sit there.
Yeah.
Have a smoothie or have a popsicle in the pool in the summer. So big sun shelf with a bubbler. That's actually the entry to the pool and to the stairs. So that's what you see right as you come out the back, and to the left of it is very large raised spa. You can probably fit 8 to 10 people in there easy. And then just, in the back corner, then just to add the ambiance, the rock waterfall. I think what's nice about the waterfall in this one, I think the choice of the stones go really well with the finish and the color of the deck.
Yeah.
You know, which is one thing nice with the waterfalls, because, you know, we try to show some samples of different stones before they're built, so that the customer can kind of get an idea of what they're looking for, but so that we also say, you know, we think this would work really well with these finishes, because, you know, the stones are natural. They come in all kinds of different colors, and, you know, we have lighter stone waterfalls, darker stone waterfalls, and I think that the choice for the stones on this one really went well with you know, the colors and the finish of the pool. It's a darker finish than some of the other pools.
Yeah, and it's a very unique blend, particularly when you look at it from, this pool is a great example of blending those modern elements with things that are a bit more classic. People might have that association of that rock waterfall as something that's a bit more of a timeless piece, something a bit more of a grotto style pool. But the remainder of this is a very modern waterscape.
And that's where I think just the choice of stone on the waterfall, you know, made it fit well with that more modern, you know, Wynwood gray travertine, you know, deck, where it's more of a classic, you know, feature to a lot of pools that you don't see as often anymore. But it also adds that running water sound that, you know, is kind of relaxing, you know?
Yeah, I mean, when you're talking about alternatives, whether it's a sheer descent, whether it's a scupper, that water flow is different.
Right.
And the way that sound strikes the water and what ambiance that creates is a different thing than a gentle cascade.
Yeah, and you know, actually goes really well with the surroundings of this yard and the house. You know, it kind of matches kind of the finish of the house really well too. So it ties a little bit of both, because the house isn't quite as modern as the pool is. You know, it's an older house that they've done some work on, but I think that it kind of ties in some of the stonework on the back of the house, and the way it sits. It's a big property. They have a small barn in the back, and, you know, that was one of the other fun things is a couple times I showed up on the project and the horse had gotten out, and, you know, we're working on a pool and there's a horse standing right next to us. So that was always interesting. You never knew if he would get out of the fence or be in the fence. So
yeah, that's problems that you don't usually have to navigate.
No.
But,
you know, now when the deck guy calls me and he goes, "Hey, the horse is walking over here near the deck. We don't want him to break anything." And
now, something you mentioned there, which I think is very interesting, when you're surveying that initial home, before you start the building, you're just going out and doing that pre-dig process, are there things that you're seeing, like you talked about, within older elements of the home, to where you might want to suggest certain things, or you might want to implement certain things, or it just reaffirms those decisions we've already made?
Oh, definitely. I mean, this one in particular, because as part of our pool construction, the homeowner was doing massive renovations to the backyard as a whole. I mean, he was building new fences. He was, you know, putting in new landscaping. He was, you know, it was a big backyard, you know, adding new turf everywhere. But one of the things we ran into on this one was actually, he had an old sidewalk that went around the side of the house. So we decided that instead of leaving that sidewalk, you know, which was old and cracked, was to extend a little bit of the decking material on the sidewalk. So, you know, that was one of the decisions that, you know, prior to me going out there and pre-siding, that, you know, the homeowner they really didn't think about. So, you know, that was one where we seamlessly kind of turned the corner and tied it back into the sidewalk down the house, rather than just having it kind of end and an old kind of broken, you know.
Yeah, I mean, and that's one of the things I think is really unique about what we do here at A&G is you guys have that autonomy to make that decision. You aren't tied strictly to the plan. You aren't sort of completely held up with what was
right. Well, yeah, because even pre-siding, you know, with the salesperson, you can't always foresee things till you go out there and you know, get into the construction process and see. You know, here we had the other thing he had is we connected a gazebo that was behind this pool. You know, which actually, as the yard went, dropped elevation. So, you know, the walkway had to kind of, you know, fall it out elevation down to the gazebo, but you didn't want it to be so drastic that it was, you know, not functional,
navigatable for those people.
Yeah.
And when I first had the opportunity to go out and take the videos and take the picture, you just kind of stop for a moment, because it is so striking, both the pool and the backyard.
It's a big pool. It's a big deck. It's a big backyard.
Nothing small about this entire project, but to see, even with that, there's no loss of detail and there's no loss of craftsmanship. Even those minute elements, those tiles individually, they're still grouted and laid as if it was a pool that was only 8 feet.
Right.
So I think that attention to detail is what allows us to then sit here and look at a project like this and sort of marvel at how it all came together. Because each individual element, as we alluded to earlier, with those individual teams working together, it all sort of coalesces into one perfect thing. Now, Reid, this is not the standard swimming.
No?
It's not in the standard location.
No.
It's not the standard design. What's going on?
This doesn't look like somebody's backyard.
It certainly doesn't look like my backyard.
No, this one was really fun for me. Actually, on this project, we've done 2 of these at the same location. But growing up in the area, having a love for the water, owning a boat, I go fishing with my friends all the time, and my family. We go on the boat a lot of weekends. So, this was cool to do because I got to see a different part of another type of industry that you don't always have access to. So, but yeah, I mean this was really cool. This we built basically what is called a float tank. This is one of the local boat manufacturers. Like I said, this one actually we've built 2 now. Yeah, it's not aesthetically what you usually see. We're not fulfilling a design by a salesperson that's a homeowner envisioned. This is a very functional, functional pool for something that probably most people could never imagine that this is a pool that would even be built.
Yeah, and I think obviously you have that familiarity with boats. Me myself, I don't have quite as much. So the initial thought of like, well, how would they test to make sure that the boat's working properly? Like you would need a small body of water like this one. And one thing that struck me right away when I was able to go visit this property and visit this company, you're like, wait, why is the water level so low? And then you realize there's a boat that has to go into that and that get displaced. So talk about how when you guys are doing that sort of thing, knowing that this isn't the standard pool where your water level has to be set at a certain spot to maintain an aesthetic, you're going for what I really think is pure function here.
Oh yeah.
How does that change your approach and your process when you're doing that?
Well, obviously, some of the stuff we talked about previously is elevations. You're not really working with any elevations in this pool because, these are actually just pools that we put right into the ground in the middle of a warehouse. So, you don't have, first of all, you don't have the elements.
True.
This pool's never going to get rained on.
It isn't.
But yeah, like you said, the water level, with the engineering and with communication with the boat manufacturers, the way this works is they construct these boats, and then towards the end of the build, they're going to test different aspects of the boats, and they're able to take the boats on a crane system and lower them into the water. I mean that too is one of the things about this pool is the sheer size of it. I mean, they can put over 50-foot boats in these pools.
Yeah, no.
But yeah, I mean, if you put a 50-foot boat in a body of water, it's going to displace the water, and the water's going to rise. So you might not be able to see exactly, but this boat, the beam of this pool, and what would usually be the waterline tile, which becomes the waterline tile once the boat is lowered into it, is raised out of the ground.
Yeah.
So really, the level that you see where the skimmers are would be a normal level, where a pool would end right above those skimmers. So we raise the beam up to allow, once they put a boat in there, the water can raise up without spilling over the edges and, getting water all throughout the warehouse.
Now, what is your process like when you were working with a company like this as opposed to an individual homeowner? I'm sure there's a lot of differences with how they go about, what their concerns are as opposed to the standard.
Oh, definitely. I mean, the main thing is, we have to kind of communicate with them on access. They might not be open on certain days. They run different schedules, so there's a lot of communication going. Like, these are the days you can come work. This is the day you can dig, and it's me calling the project manager or the manager of the warehouse there and saying, hey, we would like to come do this next step the following days. Does that work for you? So So you kind of have to work your timeline along with what works for them, because they're still working while we're working.
Yeah,
So we don't
stop.
Correct. We have to try to stay out of their way, and the other big thing is talking about keeping a job site clean.
Yeah.
Dust, dirt. I mean, you got to keep this clean. They have brand new products that have epoxies and finishes and different things that they're doing, that if we have dirt and stuff everywhere, it's not going to make their job very easy.
No, and what they're doing, obviously, and what you mentioned there, I think is perfect from the standpoint of you guys have to be so tightly integrated on something like this, because you're both going about your work day to day, and neither one of you can sort of stop and give way, because that process has to be completed in the needed time.
Correct.
So product they're making, but at the same time, they can't make their product to the best of their ability without you creating this pool.
Correct. Yeah, so you want to build it as quickly as possible, because you want to be out of their way, but you also have days where they're moving boats in and out, or they have a certain part of the build that they don't want us in the building for. Plus even just trucks and working. I mean, the day of the gunite, we have big drapes and tarps up around the pool to try to prevent any dust or over. But during that time, we have you have a big gunite trucks out front. Well, if they're moving boats or trailering things or bringing in any other equipment, we're in their way. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely a game of chess, working along, not against each other, but working with each other to strategically, get the build built as fast as possible, but also work alongside their schedule.
I just think it's so, and I think this has been sort of a recurring theme as we've spoken here today, but you being able to see that finished product, and whether that's with the residents, seeing the joy on their face and the time that they get to spend with their loved ones in this new space, or in a more corporate and commercial setting like this, where you get to see that business flourish now because of something you were able to sort of bring to fruition. I think it's a credit to you, and it's a credit to all of our teams here, where that dedication, regardless of it being a resident, a builder, commercial project like this, it is always there and it is always consistent, and it allows us to do the quality of work.
Yeah, I agree fully.